This time, can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. In this we pray. Amen. Amen. May we have a roll call, please?
Present.
Here.
Present.
Present.
Present. Item number 5. These are items from the staff communications. Are there any items tonight? Chief?
Just to keep you informed, I have a parade permit from Von Renner Elementary School for their annual Olympics parade. They have a lot of winners in this class, and they have 27 classes that will be going down our main street and celebrating their fitness. So that's coming up on June 14th, and it's real early in the morning. So if you want to see this, it's at 8:30. So, and then we're all prepared for it. Thank you.
8:30 when? Which day again?
It's June 14th. It's a Monday.
Oh, okay. June 14th. Okay.
At 8:30 in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other communications from our staff? Okay. Item number 6, these are items from the public. These are non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking any action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Are there any non-agenda items? Okay, items from the public. These are agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step forward to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor and the council grants a longer period of time. Are there any agenda items from the public? Okay. Item number 7, this is a consent calendar. 7A, approval of warrants. 7B, approval of minutes of the May 25th, 1999 regular meeting. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, can we have some direction on this?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 8, this is a public hearing for resolution number 99, next number. This is a resolution declaring the intentions of the City Council of the City of Newman to levy and collect assessments for the fiscal year 99-2000, approving the engineer's report as filed, and confirming the levy of assessment for fiscal 99-2000. Cleve? Margaret will handle this. Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. This is a routine item that's been in place for some years. The city created an assessment district for various subdivisions in town. There are 9 different zones that are covered. This covers landscaping and lighting costs in those particular subdivisions. These assessments are calculated annually. The fees are put on the tax rolls, and the citizens pay them via their property tax. The rates have not changed since 96-97. That keeps us in compliance with Proposition 218. So basically all that staff is doing is asking for council's approval after your public hearing and authorize staff to put these figures on the 99-2000 tax rolls.
Thank you, Margaret. Okay, this is a public hearing, so at this time I will open up the public hearing and ask for comment from the public. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion. Are there any questions for Margaret?
Margaret, I have one question regarding the Lucas Ranch subdivision. The fees then won't change even with the further development of the Lucas Ranch
That's correct.
area?
Those same fees have been in place and charged by the owner of the property. So there could have been 50 separate lots, but it was paid by one owner.
Thank you.
Now it'll be paid by 50 different owners.
Just split up different.
Okay. Any other questions? Margaret, I have a couple questions on this. One of the things, and I know through the years we've sort of been short-handed as far as our public works crew, and one of the things that perhaps we could maybe look at to allow our public works department to to take care of other matters in town, we currently pay, or it currently costs $29,396.80 for cost of landscaping maintenance in the different zones that are listed here. Would it at some point be cost effective to maybe contract out the landscape and lighting areas to free up our employees in other areas, if we're looking at nearly 30,000?
I've talked to Ernie about that in the past. I understand that we've tried that at one time. We went out and got bids on doing that, and at that time it wasn't cost effective to do that.
Okay.
Ernie, if you need to add anything, but if I recall, that's what you told me. If the council would like us to look at that again, that's something we can review. But at that time,
Right.
we were doing it more cost effective than
When?
we can contract out.
How long ago was that? Were there this many assessment districts at that time? Oh, there were. Oh, 2 years ago. Well, I'm not saying that we need to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just think that, you know, we're talking $30,000 for landscaping maintenance. If we could, you know, maybe just inquire a little bit, just to
We can look into it, sure.
just to see. The other thing is one of the things, and I had broken down the per unit cost on the lighting maintenance on this thing. Why is it that there's such a large difference in some of these per lot cost on the lighting maintenance? As an example, Lucas Ranch is $14.84 per lot, and you go over here to North Manor subdivision, which is $28.51 per lot. And they're just, is there a reason?
There's different sizes of lectoliers. Is that correct? And there's different.
No, what I was thinking is that perhaps the total costs are divided up amongst fewer lots.
That's
Right,
that's
right,
true
but I'm
also.
just,
A lot of
okay.
different factors.
There are two
Okay.
different sizes. We have two different fees that.
I mean,
each
I knew
need.
I know just on the number of lots as far as
Yeah.
economies of scale on the total number, but like I said, there's just one in here that's quite a bit more.
They
But,
take the total of cost per zone
okay.
and divide it by the number of lots. So if you have 10 street lights and only 5 lots benefiting from that versus
Okay.
10 street lights and 50 lots. Plus, each light could be different based on its size, because there's 150
Okay.
and 200 lectoliers or something.
But
Okay.
that's just a minor
Is it
amount
Okay.
difference.
Well, if we could at least look at the maintenance part of the landscaping maintenance part of it, and that's all I have. If there are no other questions, do you have any other questions, Kelly or Bob? No. If there are no more questions, can we have some direction on this item, please?
I so move for approval of resolution number 99 and next number. A resolution declaring the intentions of the City Council of the City of Newman to levy and collect assessments for the fiscal year 1999-2000, approving the engineer's report as filed, and confirming the levy of assessment for this fiscal year 1999-2000.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 9, this is regular business. 9A, this resolution 99 next to number, resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the City of Newman fiscal 99-2000. Margaret?
This discussion will cover both the total preliminary budget, and then further down in the agenda you will have to approve the redevelopment portion of that. But the discussion will be covering both those areas. First of all, as we approach the subject, we need to know exactly what a budget is. It's the governing board's, which is the council's, approved expenditures, period. That's what it is. But what we're really doing in this day and age is allocating limited resources. You're setting spending priorities, and you're allocating the resources to meeting those priorities. You need to decide what services are important and what are not. Before you this evening is a preliminary budget. State law requires that we adopt a budget by June 30th. A preliminary budget meets that obligation while allowing us to make corrections and modifications before the final budget is approved either in August or September. Adjustments that are needed after that time can be made during the mid-year budget review in January or at the end-of-year budget review, which will be next June or July. A preliminary budget is merely a draft. There is no text, no transmittal letter, no graphs, no tables. no charts, it's not published or circulated, it's not very pretty, it's rough, and it's subject to change. It is uncertain, it is tentative, too many issues currently remain unresolved. Revenue is unknown. The property tax, the assessor's office in Modesto has not given us the total property evaluation for this year, so we can't estimate property tax accurately. We don't know what the state's going to do with our state COPS grant, motor vehicle fees, and other items such as that. Also, more accuracy is achieved when we look at the budget after the books are closed, because projections are based on the current year's spendings. Also, when we're looking at carryovers, many adjustments haven't been completed yet. Classification and the compensation study is not completed, nor is the labor negotiations. So it's very difficult to project what these costs are going to be. When you're looking at a budget, remember to keep in mind that the entire projects are budgeted, even though we're certain that these won't be completed in the current year. So this accounts for some of the funds having shortfalls. That's okay. Some funds have accumulated money. This is money that was collected in the past for a future project. Our redevelopment bond brought us $3.5 million in cash, and that's going to be spent over 30 years. When budgeting, staff tries to keep revenue estimates low and expense estimates high. That kind of keeps us out of trouble. A balanced budget is one that you take prior year carryover plus the projected revenue minus the projected expenses. Our budget is balanced, and are you listening, Dean? We have a balanced budget of $6,006,745. But a prudent look at the budget just doesn't focus on using our carryover cash. It looks at our current requests or projected revenues minus our projected expenses. That really keeps us out of trouble. The process that we use is that we actually start when the mid-year budget process is done. We look at the totals of that time, and we project it through year out. Departments are given the worksheets, and they have the year-end anticipated expenses, and they make projections of what they're going to need for next year. Those numbers are returned, revenues are anticipated, it's compiled, reconciled, comparing the revenue to the expenses, and the manager meets with the department heads, and lots of cutting occurs. And now before you, you have the final product. Now it's time for council to review. Now I want to go over one thing that's very critical to government accounting, and sometimes you look at the budget and you say, gee, we have $6 million. But that $6 million is not for you to spend how you please. Government accounting is not like the private sector. You have a manufacturing firm in a private sector. You have different departments: marketing, sales, personnel, administration, manufacturing, and you have revenue that comes from your product. You could take that revenue and spend it on whatever department or whatever you want. In the government, you can't do that. Or they tried it many years ago, and what happened was Tammany Hall, where you had a lot of misuse of public funds is what happened. You receive funds for a specific item, it has to be spent according to the criteria of how you receive that money. We have 27 funds, and you can think of it like 27 little businesses. They all have their own revenue, and they all have their own expenses. And you can't use money intended for streets on police. You can't use money intended on the treatment plant on administration or recreation. You have to spend the money how it's separated, and that's why we have 27 different funds. Many years ago, it had gotten so bad, local government was required to have separate checking accounts for each fund. That meant we would have had 27 checking accounts to reconcile to pay these bills, because it's like 27 little businesses. Fortunately, times progressed, and with automated accounting, that's not necessary. But still, when you're looking at where to find money, be sure you focus on the appropriate fund, where the money's coming from, before you spend it. Your general fund only makes up 28% of the budget. And when you look at our total cash, that $6 million, the general fund only makes up 14% of it. All the other money is specified on how it could be used. Now let's look over the summaries, and then we can entertain any questions at that point. Your first sheet is called the income statement. It describes your 27 funds. It has cash balance projected as of June 30th, 99, projected revenue, projected expenses. This is your balanced budget, $6 million. You notice that the cash balance is projected low. I projected at the end of this year to be 6.5 million. As of today, our cash balance is really 1.7 million, but I'm projecting every possible expense that could occur during the month of June so that we don't think we have more carryover than what will actually be. If you look to the right, the accounts with the funds with the parentheses are those with problems. The first one is gas tax, Fund 21. Now that one really isn't a problem because it goes back to having a low projection. I'm almost certain we'll get enough money in the month of June from the federal gas tax sources that this will be a clear balance. Your next one is LTF. This is Local Transportation Fund. We'll discuss that a little further on when we discuss capital. Storm drain, that's Fund 42. There does need to be a funding source. There isn't a mechanism in place to collect revenue at this time.
Margaret, let me stop you right there. That was actually one of the questions that I had for you. Had we, are we working on that, looking for a funding source for that storm drain fund?
Yeah, we've got a couple of options, and what we're looking at, maybe Margaret was going to bring this up, I apologize, but we're looking at having something ready to implement by the mid-year budget on that. So
Okay.
It does say you have to be cautious when implementing these kind of fees because you could impose Prop 218, which requires a citywide election, or ever who is going to be affected by it. Currently, the expenses for storm drain are minor operations, and this is the final year that we have to pay on our street sweeper. So next year, the expenses for this particular fund should be lower unless there are capital improvements to be made. Our assessment district, Fund 69, is low, but also we just received an assessment check from the county property assessor's office. Property taxes up on this, or we got better collections than is reflected in this estimate. This one should be okay. Redevelopment agency, you need to combine those 5 last funds when you look at redevelopment agency. They total $1.8 million. When you add those up, the $612 million has already been paid out of our bond to the senior housing project. We have budgeted, again, $300,000 for the streetscape committee. So these are monies that we had received in the past, and we're spending them in the future to expend our do our obligations for the $3.5 million bond we received. Of our $6 million projected cash of June 30th, year 2000, 1.8 million of that is the redevelopment agency. The next page looks at the projections for revenue and the projected expenses for the current year, and shows in some cases where the funds have that carryover where money was collected in the past. Wastewater treatment plant, there's a problem. The revenue is slacked over the past few years. In 1995-96, industrial revenue was up to $479,000. This year, 99-2000, we project only $320,000. But it's my belief that we've hit the bottom now, and it will be going up. But the anticipated increase is not reflected because we don't have enough information right now to make a good estimate on that. Water this year, the operations are projected somewhat low. Again, there's a new vehicle being purchased. Poor Ernie can't do that every year. And also utilities are going down, and that decrease is not reflected. Again, we are really not sure how to anticipate that going down until year end, and we can look at the pattern that's been established. If you advance to, about 3 pages down, expenses by department, that just gives you a summary of how each department has been spending since 1992-93, just for informational purposes. The next page is expenditures by type. I always find this interesting. Being a service-oriented organization, over $1.5 million of our budget goes to salaries and benefits. $3.4 million is going to capital, and $952,000 is going to insurance debt payments, which you have no discretion over that. That's a prior obligation the city must meet, and various transfers. These 3 types make up almost 80% of our budget. These 3 types you don't have very much discretion over. The next page reflects the items that were requested by various departments but had to be removed. 3 positions were requested but not filled. 1 vehicle was requested and not put in the budget. 4 large pieces of equipment, such as a backhoe and other items, were pulled, and also various building improvements. In addition to this $131,000 that was cut, various cuts were made by departments in their current operating expenditures, or they had wished to request more in a certain item but didn't, because we were all trying to make sure that we meet the budget. The following 3 pages describes details our contract services. Contract services are over $500,000 just in that one account number, which is titled Contract Services. When you look at the detail portion, this will describe the detail portion that you find in the line item budget. We have its contract services, such as our city attorney, our city engineer, our city building inspectors, Bertolotti's for picking up the service of the garbage in our community. Police departments amounts to $32,000. The wastewater treatment plant is over $30,000. Some of these are minor, some of them are major. Following contract services description are capital expenditures. We have in the budget $60,000 budgeted for vehicles, $137,000 for various equipment. One of these is the computers to run the wells, the SCADA it's called, system. It's $37,000, but it's critical to be Y2K compliant. Wastewater treatment plant has put in $1,500 for a generator to also in case of power shortages. Construction, mostly at the treatment plant, $24,000. Land acquisition, this is the interest payments on our park. In a few years, there will be $143,000 due in that one balloon payment. Building improvements are $85,000. Various developments that are provided by our planning and our engineering department for upcoming projects, anticipated at $25,000. That is a very rough estimate. As you look at these, there's over $83,000 that are direct carryover from last year, such as designs for the council chambers, designs for City Hall. These are things that we had been planning for and never had actually done it, but we want to put it in the budget to set that money aside. We have close to $1 million of projects that were budgeted for last year, such as Inyo Railroad Crossing downtown, streetscape, the flood mitigation program, that are also carried over. And our total cost is $3.4 million. These are the capital requests, equipment, and projects. Following that is a sample of how the funding and the expenses work together on our various street projects. We have various street projects such as Inyo Road, a railroad crossing. That's anticipated to cost $543,000. You're going to get money from 4 different sources: the redevelopment agency, the state's PUC 130, that's funding from the state for this type of project. Also from the RSTIP, the STIP, I believe that's called the Regional Surface Transportation Improvement
Program.
Yeah, something like that. Various fundings from the state. LTF means Local Transportation Fund. On the sales tax you pay for every you pay on every purchase, 1/4 cent of that goes into the LTF fund. It's distributed by the counties for first transportation, transit programs, then the leftover for streets and roads. Gas tax is collected. It's a charge per gallon that the federal government collects and distributes to us. When you list all the projects, including the operations, and when you look at all the funding sources, you'll notice that right now, if we were to do everything and get every penny, we'd be short $72,000. 62 of that, if you look back in the front page, is from LTF. 9,600, that is gas tax. This really isn't too major of a problem. We get about 75 to 80,000 on LTF each year. These projects will not be completed by June 30th. So as long as this is kept in mind as you think of new projects, we need to be cautious before we do anything else real soon. And to assist council as they look at the actual budget, the table that follows our street project is the summary of funds, departments, and account numbers. The funds we talked about earlier, that's the source of where the money's coming from, or you can even consider it the name of this. You're identifying this little entity separating it from all the other entities within the city funding sources. The departments are the functions. You have administration or public safety, fire, police. And the account numbers describe the type or what it is. What's the item? It's salaries or capital or supplies. When you use these three series of numbers, it helps you identify what the item is when you look at the next pages, which is our actual line item budget. All right, that concludes what I have. I'm open to any questions.
Questions for Margaret? Questions? Questions?
Yes, Margaret. On your capital expenditures, where you're listing the different items for the different organizations, we have a new tape deck for the recording system for the for the council chamber at $800.
Yes.
Is that sound a little high, or
We have a pretty sophisticated system here.
do we? Okay.
Well, with the mics tied into the
all of it. Okay.
the recording machine tied into the VCR.
Okay, that was just one I saw. The one that really hit me was the.
Judy has information on.
Oh, okay. Okay, and that's a ballpark figure what it would. Okay, right. The one that is for the recreation department, a lifeguard chair at $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds, get a whole room full of furniture for $2,500.
This is the high chair.
Yeah, I went down. I went down and looked at the one we have down there, and is it defective, or we're replacing it, or? Is
I
this
believe they're adding.
another one.
Yeah. No, excuse me. They are replacing it.
Okay.
That was the request that came in from the recreation director, was to replace the existing one.
Okay,
And I can
that-
check with him to get firmer quotes.
Yeah, it looks just like a bunch of pieces of pipe there put together, and it's about 8 foot tall, and it just seems like we could do a little better than $2,500. So,
We'll check that.
okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Margaret, one question I had regarding the street projects for 99 and 2000. The 80,000 that's shown for LTF for overlays,
Yes.
would that include any project involving this crowning out here on 33?
I don't believe so.
No, that doesn't. We're still working on that, and initially what we're hoping for is that Caltrans is going to fund that. But that is in the works. We've had good communication with them, and they're currently working on that problem. But we didn't put anything for it because our initial discussions have been that they are hoping to be able to fund that themselves without contribution from us.
Okay.
Other questions? Questions?
No, just excellent job, Margaret. You always do an excellent job, and you don't, you explain it extremely well.
I have a couple questions for you, Margaret, and I'll just go in the order the way I've got my budget marked. About, let's see, 8 or 9 pages in, I think, under expenditures by type. We have here under vehicle maintenance budget for 99-2000, 67,500. Now, in looking through it, I'm sort of thinking that doesn't include any of the costs because there's a substantial savings with the fire department vehicles that I know that aren't factored in other than just the parts. And I know we've talked about this, and I'm looking at these figures, and I mean I see them going up. We've got 2 vehicles that we're going to buy this year, and I just think that that's something maybe we ought to take another look at as far as the cost, because we're starting to get up there a little bit in vehicle maintenance, and it wouldn't hurt. This also includes all of the gas, oil, and all of that, right, Margaret?
It does.
Okay. Okay. Well, it still wouldn't hurt though. Like I said, we're purchasing a few more vehicles now. And I certainly know this doesn't include all the savings that we have with the fire department. That may not always be there for savings that we currently get. But just if we could look at this 'cause like I said, it's getting up to the 70,000 mark, and it may be going up a little bit higher. So if we could bring that back. Boy. The next thing I have is, let's see. On the contract services, a couple more pages back. Second page of it under street maintenance. There's 4,000 there for expenditures on tree pruning and tree care. I know a couple of years ago, and refresh my memory, Ernie, on this, there was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was a gentleman from Dos Palos who writes grants for tree, purchasing trees.
Dr.
and
Sweet or Dr.
Dr. Sweet, there you go.
Sweeney.
Anyway, if we could possibly, I know he gave us a brief presentation here about 4 or 5 years ago and talked about the different grants that he could apply for. And, maybe if we can at least contact him and see what's available, maybe we could even include some of the administration in those grants. But, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to make a phone call. Sure.
This is strictly service. This has nothing to do with the new trees.
No, right. I'm just, if there's something, maybe we could just contact them to see if there are funds available. Let's see. We haven't heard anything more as far as going down to the fund and department number listing, the summary of funds. Have we heard anything more on this vehicle licensing fee situation?
No.
Anything more?
All of the proposals that I've seen right now for this year's state budget is that we will continue to be funded. I understand there is possibly a measure that's being proposed to go on the year 2000 ballot that would actually put it to the people to vote on the vehicle license fees. So they may be eliminated then, but as far as I know, for this coming fiscal year, we will receive the projected amount. None of those numbers will be taken away. That's still up in the air. The state budget has not been adopted yet.
Okay. Okay. A few pages back more on E8 under fire department. There's a fund in here for auto allowance. And if we could maybe look at that under mid-year budget review for the chief for auto allowance, it seems awful low for the chief for auto allowance, where it says $600 for the year. If we could maybe look at that at mid-year, that just seems low. Let's see. On what is this? E11, Fund 21 under utilities, or Fund 24, I'm sorry. Department 33, it says $39,000 for the street lighting. Is this all the other older section of town?
Yes.
Is this the street, what
Yeah.
we subsidized,
And it has
$39,000?
been switched from Fund 24 to General Fund. It was being charged out of LTF.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was
and
reading it
now
wrong here. I'm
we
sorry.
reallocated.
That's up to general fund.
Yeah.
10, okay.
Once the street projects get paid for, and there isn't any pending major expenses, we could go back to using LTF funds to pay for the street lights.
Okay. Okay. And, well, let's see. One quick question on the, how much, and I didn't see it in here, how much do we have budgeted for sidewalk improvement? What was the amount?
There's not a specific amount, but there are monies in there. Ernie, I don't know if you could tell us approximately how much we spend, but it's not specific. It's based on just various amounts that we use.
Okay. Reason I'm asking is I know one of the things that we had talked about before, I know I constantly see down here on Kern where you've got portion of the sidewalk and then it stops right before you get to that corner there, and then on the other side there isn't any sidewalk. But I just can't believe how many times I see women pushing strollers out in the street because there isn't any more sidewalk. And if we could maybe have you come back with a cost estimate on that, just for starters. I know, our budget's tight this year, and I know we have to, budget for next year and everything, but it's amazing how many women you see pushing their strollers down that street. And I just, when it rains, when it rains, or especially out there, because you've got all that dirt there and it starts to get real muddy out there. And if we could just maybe do something on that, if we could bring that back possibly at the next meeting to get a cost estimate. One other thing on this budget, on page E14, one of the things that isn't included in this budget is the police department has a situation where their call channels are on channel 1, I believe, and I know since I've been on the city council for the last 7 years, they've had a problem with their handhelds, to where they try to call out on their handheld units on the secondary channel when the first one is really crowded, and they have to get on the channel 3, the secondary channel. They're unable to do it on their handheld units, and this has been a problem for years now, and it's come to my attention that there is a piece of equipment that the chief has found out about after this budget process was well underway already. It's basically a $4,500 piece of equipment, and what it would do would be allow them to use their handheld units on the secondary channel in case of emergencies, which they are now unable to do. And so I talked to Cleve, and they've gone through the budget, and it's been pretty tight and everything. And I was able to, and let me say I want to compliment our staff, because in looking through this thing for a good hour and a half, I couldn't really find anything in here that was able to cut. It's just a very tight budget. But I did find something, and it's on page E14. One of the things that I talked to Cleve about is some of the fencing out there at the baseball, at Materi Field, the baseball, the fencing, the infield, the dirt, and so forth. Well, we've got $5,000 budgeted here, but the baseball season ends in a couple weeks. It ends in 2 weeks. So this stuff isn't actually going to be needed until next year. And the problem with the equipment is that the county is also looking at this same equipment, and I'm concerned that this equipment may be gone by the time the chief applies for this grant and receives some of the funding. So what I'm requesting is that we allocate this $5,000 that isn't needed until next year, and we revisit this item, this baseball item, at mid-year budget. And since it is out of the general fund, this isn't allowable use for this police equipment. We allow the chief of police to purchase the equipment that's currently available with the funds that he has a small amount of funds, and whatever remaining funds he needs would be to come out of this as needed, and then we revisit this particular item on E14 at mid-year, if the council would concur with that.
I think it sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Okay.
That'd be a good thing for you, Mike. Good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
One of the things that Mike's brought attention, I just want to bring to your attention, and I realize we want to get this equipment before we can't get it. The sheriff's department is currently looking at moving their comm center. So even though we're going to buy this equipment, we aren't going to install it, because if we install it now, we have to pay it for the cost of having it installed. The sheriff's department moves their comm center, we would have to pay it for it again. So we're going to wait until they have moved the comm center because the installation cost is about $11,000? Did you tell me, Mike? $9,000 to $11,000. So we don't want to have to pay that cost twice, and we would if we put this in immediately. So even though we're going to get the equipment as you recommended, if the council approves this tonight, we will hold off actually installing it so that we don't have to pay that cost twice.
I just think it's important to get the equipment before the county goes ahead and gets it.
Do you know what the time frame is for the move, the communication center move?
I haven't heard anything. Mike would have. I don't know how much you know on that, Mike.
Well, as any good project, the tentative date keeps moving back. They're looking at March of next year as the date of the move. It was supposed to be June of this this month, but it got pushed back. We've had problems in reinstalling and refitting the building in Modesto.
And I guess handhelds, in relation to technology, handhelds are not going to be new and improved by next year.
No, we're going to be using the same type of technology for many years to come. We currently have the same type of equipment it's called a voter receiving station, and it's actually housed at the cell site that's over in our industrial park, that large tower. And this where this current one will be housed also. It's kind of old technology that it's oldie but a goodie. It just you just can't. It doesn't break down. It's Y2 compliant. There's no moving parts to break down, so it's a pretty bulletproof type of system, and that's kind of what we're looking for. What the mayor has alluded to is basically we are able to get out, but we aren't able to get out consistently, and that's our biggest fear. Is you could be away from your car. There's more traffic or more calls for service and information exchanging on these transmission lines, our radios, and we were not having that much of a problem on our channel 1, but now with more officers and things coming on that channel, and when they call for an emergency, that sticks us over to the secondary channel. That's when our problem arises, and we're just trying to alleviate that at this point. Great.
Okay.
Any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions on the budget,
I have a question.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just not very familiar with this on the capital expenditures for 1999 to 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Page it looks like this.
Yeah.
It says under building improvements, account number 7505. It has under council designs for council chambers, carryover of $15,000, and designs for city hall, carryover of $10,000. What are these for?
This has been in the budget for a number of years. It's when, in the future, we have capital facility fees money set aside to improve our community buildings, City Hall and the council chambers being two of those. We have set aside these funds to bring on board an architect to start making the appropriate plans to see how to best improve these two buildings. And it's just that in case something comes up where we want to do it in December, the money is already set aside and ready planned for in the budget.
So this money, this $15,000 for the council chambers and city hall, $10,000 is just set aside for an architect
Architect and engineering
that
fees.
may or may not be looking at these.
That's correct. Then it won't be spent.
So I have a question. What's wrong with these council chambers? Is there something wrong with these that they need to be redesigned, or?
I think the main thing that has brought that up is the issue that it's been brought up several times to look at possibly expanding back into the fire bay. Mayor Marquez brought this up a couple of meetings ago about possibly, rather than expanding back like that, actually moving into the fire bay and turning it the other direction. So
To expand the actual council chambers?
Yes.
To be bigger?
Well, it wouldn't only just be for council chambers, but also we have some agencies that meet at the L.J. Newman building once a month, and the cost for air conditioning there and heating and everything, it tends to be rather high, and we sometimes have community meetings and so forth. What we were thinking is maybe having a facility that could be used not only for us, but other type of community meetings, because we've had a couple meetings at the L.J. Newman building, and it's just been kind of having to take everything over there as far as the microphones, as far as everything else, and it just seems like it would be more convenient. But as Margaret said, we've had this budgeted for years, and we've just carried it over every single year.
Wasn't that also a command center for the emergencies? Wouldn't that
That was
be part
also
of
a possibility.
Yeah, that's one of the things we
Yeah.
talked about. And the thing, what I had brought up a few meetings back was that part of the problem is if we were to go this way, you'd have to knock down all that wall and everything else, and it'd be a pretty big task. But going this way, when we measure it out going north-south in the fire bay, this building in here measures 900 square feet. The one in there measures 1,500 square feet. And the way it's laid out already, you won't have to cut through anything.
So, I mean, like, how many meetings are we talking about? Because I'm just thinking $15,000 just for an architect to look at it and do some drawings and stuff for a budget that's so tight like this. I mean, like, this is really going to happen this year. I mean, I understand the city hall needing to be expanded because you guys are cramped over there. I understand that. And you guys have to work in it every day. But, I mean, I'm just looking at $15,000.
Yeah.
Gosh, we could do a lot with $15,000.
Let me explain. Well, Margaret's probably going to say anything. One of the things, this is one of those restricted funds. It can
So
only
you
be
have to
used
use it just
for city hall, council chamber type facilities. It's designated for that. It has to be used for that.
Is
The
it
other
money
thing,
that's provided by another agency?
By
the town?
developers.
by developers.
When they take out a building permit, there's municipal facility fees attached to as charges. That's prorated for things that has to be used for parks, it has to be used for police station, fire station, and some of it has to be used for community
Government
buildings.
buildings.
It has to be used or obligated within 5 years of its collection. By putting in the budget, we have obligated it.
Okay.
So we're meeting it's showing that we're thinking about it. There's a lot of other service organizations that use city facilities or would like to use more, and it just isn't space. Self-help interviews people for loans, sometimes have to go to the library. DMV goes to the memorial building twice a month. The organizations that assist people with utility payments. The school has applied for that Healthy Start program, and they want to bring in medical services or screening, counseling, job counseling, medical counseling, family care, legal care, and they just don't have a good place, small meeting rooms for people to meet. And the thought was if we expanded this, that one, you could have your large auditorium for your council chambers, but also have smaller meeting rooms to be used not as a community as a recreational item, but for the community for social services. Plus it gives you an opportunity to have closed session in a small meeting room without making your people who might be interested in your results wait outside.
Councilman Alderman, I just want to, one of the things that I see that might trigger that, you mentioned we are getting somewhat crowded at times over in City Hall, is when the point comes that we may need to have another office in City Hall, that the conference room over there becomes an office. That may be what triggers that, because then we could do, as we're talking about, redesign this so that this area over here could be used as a conference room, and we could use that over there as an office when that need comes. So I can't tell you that this would not happen this year. My opinion is that I don't think it will happen this year, but it is in here, as Margaret mentioned, to obligate the funds because we're required to do that.
Okay. I didn't know that was one of those funds.
And actually, what Cleve just brought up, our conference room is used a lot, much to the annoyance of other people who need it. You know, and a lot of the smaller meetings could be held over here, and there's sometimes conflicts, and sometimes you just need a room to bring in your peers to work on something, and it's not a scheduled thing. But darn if there isn't anyone there in our way at that time. So, but this is in the future. You know,
We have to plan for this.
we have to plan for it exactly.
I thank you for
And
explaining
it is
that. I
capital
didn't know that.
facilities, you know, that's where the funding column comes in. And
When the developers collect the money,
we,
and you said that once it's put on the budget, it has to be used or spent within
once
5
it's
years?
collected.
Once it's collected?
Uh-huh.
So when they collect it, does it automatically have to go into a specific fund?
Yes.
Or is it the city that puts it in specific funds?
We collect it from the developers. It's assessed on the building permits. When you pay your building
A
permit,
certain fund already in mind? Or
we know what fund, yes. It says you have to pay $1,300 when you build a brand new house. Of that $1,300, $200 goes to police, $200 to fire, and I'm not exactly sure of that.
No, I
exact-
get what you mean.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
pre-designated by ordinance
Yeah.
under where that
Okay.
money goes
Yeah.
to. So, yeah,
Okay.
we don't have a choice. We collect it, put it in that fund, and it's there.
Okay.
Until you go back and say, we need more or less in this fund, then you can change the ordinance, and if
Okay.
you can justify that, to change it. So.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I knew what it was, because
Yeah.
I know inevitably someone's going to stop me and go, how can you guys spend $15,000 to research new council chambers when we don't have this, this, and this? And I just wanted to be able to give them an answer
Yeah.
and be prepared for that. Because I feel uncomfortable about it myself.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking at this building and I'm going, geez, it's barely even got a seat filled most of the time. If it weren't for Dean being here most of the time as the chief of police, it would be so empty. But okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I have one. We have a problem with the theater building. It was originally stuccoed under the marquee and around the sides, then covered with plywood. That plywood is now rotting, and someday it's going to fall on someone. And there is a period of about a month coming up shortly where there'll be no programs there. And the theater board wanted to tear that off. We have someone to plaster it at a cost of $4,000. And I don't know whether it would come out of general fund or RDA, probably RDA. But it's really something that the city should look at doing before the does fall on someone.
Can you bring that back to us, Cleve? And obviously, it's
Yeah, the question is, when I had talked to Councilmember Reed earlier today, he had mentioned that the final work will not be finished until at least, mid-July probably, or early to mid-July. And therefore, if we wanted to include that in the budget, we could. Margaret helped me out as far as, do we have RDA funds that we can use? I'm assuming we can use bond money for something like that.
Or,
As an
yes, we
improvement-
can,
As an improvement to
to a
to the-
community building.
Right. to
That's
the-
not a city hall. or
Right.
police
Yeah,
department.
you can't do it for public buildings, but a community building like that, we could. So it's kind of up to the council if they
Wait,
want
say that
to-
again as far as the public building deal here?
We cannot use redevelopment money to improve a city hall or a police station.
Right.
Okay.
But you can use it to buy a theater, which we did. We can use it to enhance public buildings, community buildings, not the offices that city officials.
Things like a community center, things like that could possibly be built using RDA funds.
Oh, I see.
And these are not monies that could be used to fix streets or anything anyway, so, right?
Some of them
Well, they
could.
could
Some
be.
redevelopment can, if
There are
it
certain
benefits
street
the public
projects could be.
sector.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just normal repairs and maintenance.
No,
to
not
other things,
repairs.
that's
That'd
right.
be
Yeah.
improvements,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about this, this may be a leap here, but these funds that Kelly was talking about as far as the council designs for public facility improvements, could that be technically public facility improvement over there?
No.
Nope.
Not as I understand it, because generally, and I don't know the history of our capital facility fees, but generally when you do a capital facility fee, you detail what buildings that is designed for.
Right, the theater is in there. That is
part
okay,
of
but
that.
it's gotta
Okay.
be a major improvement as opposed to a repair.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
it's-
Okay. Well, I would be in favor of, if it's redevelopment or general fund, we have made a commitment to the theater, for this long, and I would like to see us continue with our commitment to them. And one of the other things that I'd like to see us maybe come back with, in addition to this, is just an update as far as what we're going to need to do to complete the entire project. But I would be in favor of.
There is one other item that I had talked to David about that we need to look at, and we need to do some more work with the theater board on that, and that is the remainder of the roof, which has not been repaired yet, and so we can bring that back to you later.
Can we bring that back? Plus, there's still the facade that they're going to work on, and the neon and all that.
The theater board feels that they can come up with the monies for the paint, to paint the outside of the building. It's just that the major things like the stucco work and the neon and the roof are the main objects that is beyond their scope right now.
Okay. Well, I would be in favor of doing this work that Councilmember Reed has suggested needs doing. If we could ask our staff to fund it out of the appropriate area and budget that item, if there are no objections.
Sounds very good.
One question I have is, if it's an expenditure of public funds, is there a need to follow certain bidding requirements to have that work done, or are we allowed to just have it done?
Isn't it under
By the-
$5,000?
If it's under
If it's under
$5,000,
$5,000?
it's not, yeah.
Okay.
And this is how much? 49?
4,000.
Okay. If there are no objections to that, can we, I just want to compliment Margaret and our city manager and our department heads for putting together such a very good budget. And
Can I ask one more thing? Police Chief Brady, how are we doing with our animal control and stuff? Was there anything that we needed, you said we wanted to get some improvements done to our kennels?
We have done some improvements this year on our kennels, and we've taken that out of our supplies account. I'm looking at the purchase of additional cat trap cages and some things of that nature. But I believe next year what I'll be bringing to the council would be not only just improvements, but also possibly looking at plans for our own transfer station. Now we can't call it a shelter anymore, where we could house these animals on a temporary basis and meet all the new standards that are placed on us by law. So I think that would be the first step. That and maybe an animal control truck down the road, but we're going to have to see how the budget and the monies fall. So, and this year we are going to be budgeted for about the same amount of money for animal control as we have last year. So,
Will that be sufficient? I mean,
it's the amount for what I have budgeted. That's going to be what that's the program that we're going to go with this year. So, if the need arises, I will come back as funds permit. If we have a windfall and some monies, then I may come back and see if we can up that. I'd like to go to 15 hours, but I will. And Margaret, I'm trying to keep Margaret happy here too. That she's done such a hard work on that budget. I don't want to change it on her right now. But if we do find other monies that I might come back to you and see if we could spend that in that area.
okay.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Are there?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Tina Rodriguez. I live at 27513 South Highway 33. I wouldn't want city staff or the council to think that no one's reading this budget, so I do have a couple questions for you. Two areas. The first area is under the Business License Surcharge Fund, which is number 68, and it's on page E20. I'm just curious as to what the $10,000, it has that was actual for this year and projected for next year. What types of, facilities, I guess, or maintenance is that going towards? And also the downtown parking account went up from 122 to 3,000 in one fiscal year. And is that just for the maintenance of the parking lots downtown?
What page are we on again, Margaret? I'm sorry.
E20.
20.
Okay. The first question, typically we always budget $10,000 because we're really not sure what the needs are going to be for this particular department. This money comes from a business license surcharge. A 50% surcharge is attached to every license that's collected in town. It's the right that the city has to impose this license is granted by state code, and it's to be used to things to make the downtown area be more attractive. That's its primary purpose in life. We budget $10,000. We set that aside. At the time we do this, we're really not sure what type of requests there will be. We purchased banners for the downtown. We purchased the Christmas tree, street lighting for downtown streets, that sort of thing. This year, out of that particular fund, we paid for the Fall Festival. Committee had requested funding for the license insurance that they required. So this again is for promoting downtown activities, and or the business district activities. So that's anything to improve. We budgeted 2 years ago. You don't see the budget for 1997-98. We had budgeted $3,000 in the past when we constructed the new parking lot next to Foster's to help with the landscaping. This year, of that $3,000, we only spent $122. If there's additional things that need to be done to that lot, this money is set aside for that. And it depends. We may need to do it. We may not.
Thanks, Margaret. I just to clarify that, under the actual, though, are you saying we've expended $3,000 out of that account this year? Or am I reading the...
Projected actual, is that where you're looking, Tina?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
Under actual for 98.99.
When the department has budgeted $3,000, I'm not going to lower this projected amount until I know for a fact that they're not going to use it. That's why our projected expenses is higher for year-end than what it actually will be. I sincerely doubt that we're going to spend $3,000 on that downtown parking lot, but the amount was budgeted, and I don't have a right to say we're not going to spend it until June 30th comes, and we haven't. I don't think we've spent hardly anything this year on it. But we might. We can.
Stick around for the next item.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. And the second question I had was on page E22, and it's talking about it's out of Fund 76 for the bond downtown, and under the budget description, it has the downtown improvement design streetscape. Is that budgeted for the streetscape committee that's currently meeting for the design and?
What number are we looking at? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
E22?
The third.
7728?
Yes.
The 300,000?
Yes.
Yeah, that's to actually begin improvements on the downtown streetscape. Some of the work has been done for the design work this year, and some of that has been paid out, but that's a preliminary amount. We don't know for sure how much the actual improvements are going to cost yet because we don't have the design.
Okay.
But that will go towards the actual improvements.
Okay, I was
That's
just curious
designed
if the final numbers had come in.
No,
Okay.
no, we don't have
And
those
and
yet.
I'd like to thank the council for putting this towards the downtown streetscape committee, because from what I've heard out of the project, it's going to be really great to have that downtown. So just like to thank you for that.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, can we have some direction on this preliminary budget?
I make a motion that we accept the resolution adopting preliminary budget for the city of Newman fiscal year 1999-2000.
That would include the one amendment that was made. As amended?
As amended, yes, as amended. I'm sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 9B, this is a review of a proposal to lease parking lot at 1223 Main Street for public parking and authorize city manager to negotiate agreement. Cleve? Okay, this item has been on my plate, I think, as Tina knows, since I got here. And it's one that I've played with a lot and looked at different options. You have a list of options that we have actually considered. Some have been attempted and at various degrees. And the one that keeps coming back and discussed by business owners and by several people that I've talked to is the issue of trying to make an additional parking lot located at 1223 Main Street, which is, many of you may know, is the veterinary clinic across from the police station, the parking lot that is there. Currently that is a private property parking lot, it's privately owned. However, there is quite a large area in the back of that parking lot that is just vacant. And I have talked to several people. I've talked to Mr. Jeff Carter, who is the owner of the property, concerning the possibility of the city either leasing, buying, what his thoughts may be on it. He is very cooperative and very open to seeing what the city may be interested in. Technically, to be honest with you, I think he would sell it to us right now if we wanted to. He is also open to some sort of a long-term lease if we're interested in that. At this time, what I was looking at doing was looking at putting some costs into it to open it up and make it available as a parking lot, but only putting improvements in that would be somewhat temporary in nature, given that we don't know for sure that this is going to solve the problem. There's been questioned by some people saying, if we open that up back there, will people really go back there and park in that parking lot? So we've been somewhat reluctant to put a lot of cost in buying and building a new parking lot until we know if that is really the answer. The other solution that we have not been able to implement yet and look at is the possibility of doing alley improvements, which I've listed here as number 5, where we could actually create parking areas for employees and possibly in some areas even for the public in the alleys behind the buildings. If you go down the alleys on both sides, there's some areas where there are actually some quite large vacant areas that could be used as parking areas, especially for employees who could use the back entrances to the building. So that is one thing that we would like to consider further. If we were able to do that and improve the alleys and create those parking areas and resolve the problem that way, it would leave this area open for future commercial or retail development, whatever design in the future. There's nothing to say, unless we purchase the property, that this owner couldn't build a building on that property where we want to build put the parking lot.
as we talked to him, what we've explained to him is the best design would be to put the building where his current parking lot is and build a new parking lot back behind there, because then you have your retail space right at the front of the property, and the parking in the rear would make it look better. I've spoken to Mr. Carter about the possibility of entering into just a 3-month lease with certain provisions. We didn't really talk about the cost specifically, so we would need to go back and negotiate that further, but I think that he is willing to look at it at a reasonable cost at this time. The one thing that is, in order to make it a usable parking lot, you can see the cost estimate that our city engineer has given us. He's proposed about $7,150 to do this. I think that we could probably do it for a little bit less than that after I talked to him about some of the items that are in here. The cost for the fencing that is proposed here, I'm not sure that would be necessary. I think there's other ways to do that we talked about. But anyway, some of these costs may be able to reduce somewhat. But at this time I wanted to bring it back to the council and have the council authorize us to negotiate the agreement. And if we can get an agreement with them, then I will bring that back to you for your approval, and also ask at that time for the approval of funds to do the improvements. And you can see from what I put in my report, what I proposed here is to use the $5,000 that is remaining in the parking lot fund that Margaret previously spoke of, and an additional $2,150 I'm proposing to use from the business license surcharge fund. Now, there's been some questions of whether or not that is an appropriate cost for that, but it's definitely a benefit to the downtown area if this parking lot is approved and goes in. So that's basically my report at this time. I wanted to get council's approval to work with the city attorney to draw up a lease agreement and negotiate with the property owner to work out a 3-month lease. And like I said, I have spoken to him. Originally he thought I was talking about a permanent parking lot with asphalt and concrete and the whole works, and he didn't want to look at a 3-month lease doing something like that. When I explained to him the temporary nature, he was very open to that. So he was open to the permanent parking lot facility if we were looking at a long-term lease, but not obviously on just a 3-month lease.
Right. Questions for Cleve?
Yeah, Cleve, would that involve like removing that fence and everything from back there?
Yes, we would remove the fence, level the back area, and put down kind of what would be a road base that would be packed and would be drivable on. Probably putting down the what do you call them? The curbs, the wheel stop.
Oh,
Would it
yeah.
be striped? It would not be able to be striped. The wheel stops would be what would delineate the parking areas, rather, because on the road base like that, the striping wouldn't work. So.
Well, there's not many places. That downtown is so compact, there's not much room to put parking in the first place. So I think that trying this, I think it's a good idea. I mean, anything is going to help, and especially in that area, it gets so crowded right in that area, that end of downtown.
Yeah. There's been a significant increase of activity in that area. The one building where the doctor's office is, and with the nursery that's come in there, there is a lot of activity in that block. Yeah.
You know, hopefully the people that work in that area would use that parking lot, so they'd open up the parking on the street.
That's what I see. Is that I don't see the customers parking there. So in order for it to work, it would have to be the employers would have to encourage employees to park in that parking lot. So that's how I see that it would be successful.
How about these other items on here, items 1 through 4, about creating the diagonal parking on Kern and Tulare, adding parking in front of the fire bay, allowing Patchett employees to park at the fire station, and encourage employees of business in the north block to park off of Main Street. What's been the results of the exploration of that?
Number 1 has not, it's just been reviewed but not been tried yet. We weren't convinced that was going to be a significant factor in resolving the problem. Number 2 also would only add, I think 1 or 2 parking places to park in front of the fire bay. We've approached Patchett's on the number 3. They're still debating on that one. We still may do that one, but that one may help some. Again, I don't think it would be a significant factor,
just because of the location of it, people aren't going to know it's there as much. Number 4, the Chamber of Commerce, as I understand, did pass out flyers on this one, but without, as I understand, it hasn't really worked, but they did do that. So
You feel if the city would send letters to the business owners, that may
That
have a
might
better
help.
effect?
That might
may.
help.
I don't know.
You know, it seems to me we're trying to help the merchants down there. It would seem to me that they would encourage their employees to park other than right in front of their places of business.
Most of them do. There are just a few.
Well, I
that-
mean, they could almost go to the point of saying, look, you have to park in another area because we're trying to make money here.
Yeah.
And it would be better. I mean, the public has a place to park. They're going to feel more comfortable, you know, patronizing the merchants. So,
Without striping and everything, how's this thing gonna look?
It's going to look like a gravel parking lot, basically. It's not going to, so I'll admit it's not going to look good at this point for a formal public parking lot. But on a trial basis where we're trying to get basically employees to park off the street, it's not in a bad location. It's not that far from the businesses. I think that it has the potential to work. One of the business owners is here. I don't know what Tina's thoughts are. She's one of the ones that's been pushing me on this. So
I agree that we need more parking. How well used is the parking over there at Pioneer on the side there?
Pretty full.
Is it?
actually got a lot of cars in it.
Does it? Okay. Okay.
I'm just not sure how successful the gravel idea is going to be, because it was gravel at one time, and I know I tried parking there a time or two, and if you've got good shoes on, you hate parking in that lot. But
Yeah,
but
sure,
how many
come on.
spaces would it free up? And also, there's no contingency for lighting. I'm wondering, you know, is it just meant for a daylight parking lot?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we said is that, you know, we're only doing this on a trial basis for 3 months. And that is during the summer months where we do have the longer days, so more light. So I don't see that as a real, a major factor. It is somewhat, but the other thing is that it would be mainly for daytime, because I believe most of those businesses are going to close by, what, 7, 8 o'clock at night? Tina?
But now,
So in the north block, yeah, it would be mostly.
so
for
we're
daytime.
talking about a 3-month basis, and we're talking about spending $7,100 on 3-month basis here?
That's what it would take to make it.
So if this doesn't work, I mean, we're
Somewhat
basically out $7,000 if this thing doesn't work.
Yes, but if it does work, then you have that much already into
No,
it.
I know.
It would be progress towards, it would still be used when we actually, if we were to put in a permanent parking lot. So if it does work, it wouldn't be lost money in that way. But
Okay.
Well, you know, when I've worked for different employers, we were told that you had to park. It wasn't small places like this. We were told you have to park in a certain part of the parking lot. You know, so I don't see why, you know, they can be a little more, you know, demanding of their employees and the owners of the businesses themselves. I know a lot of them park right out in front of their place. And it would be just to their advantage to free up those spaces, park in the gravel lot or off Main Street at least somewhere, and let the spaces be for the customers. You know, that even if they have to walk a few feet in a little bit of gravel, you know, it's only, you know, how many times are they going back and forth into their car during the day?
I agree with you. However, part of the problem that's arisen from that is we, or myself as a business owner, I don't have any control over the other business owners or their employees downtown. And I know that we don't allow our employees to park there. We do provide off-street parking, but I can't enforce that on another business owner. And if they're allowing their employees to park, you know, at random, they encroach down the street, which does impact our business. And so I don't know, the city sending a letter, it would certainly help, but I don't think you have any enforcement mechanism in place to really,
I don't think the city can enforce it. We
Can
can recommend it.
unless you went to a timed or, I mean, and that's going into a whole nother area. So.
Let me ask a question. Do you think this will work with the gravel and all? You think that'll work?
I think it would certainly be a better solution than what we have now. I personally would encourage the council to look at a long-term solution at that area now. And as Cleve stated, if the owner of that property is willing to sell or enter into a long-term lease at this time, I would encourage the council to go that direction because I don't see the problem being alleviated in any other way. We have 2 storefronts that are vacant down there right now, and that's the potential for 2 more retail businesses to come in, which I would certainly encourage from the business standpoint and sales tax standpoint, but that's just going to be a further impact on our parking.
What did that parking lot cost us down at the south end of Main Street, this new one we have? How much? 60? Wow.
Could we possibly think about a lease option to buy? I mean,
That's another, if we want to do something long term, that would definitely be something to look at, yeah.
And can I ask you one additional
Sure.
question? This 7150 that would be for the temporary improvements, would that be rolled into the permanent then, so that wouldn't be a lost amount into that?
Yeah, most of it would be. I mean, we would have to do the grading, the clearing and grading. We would have to do. I'm not sure, Ernie. Maybe you can help me. The 4 inches of AB. I'm assuming that could be used as a base when we go in to do actual asphalt. So yeah, none of it would really be lost if we went to a permanent parking lot.
Except for the leasing, actually, the rent, because
The
of
lease
license
cost,
fees,
yeah,
it would be towards purchasing.
correct.
But I just wanted to thank Cleve for all of his work on this. He's been very patient and cooperative with me, so thank you. Thank you.
Do we, one concern that I do have, however, on the funding of it, I know that in looking through the budget on the capital expenditure section of our fund, I know there's 3 areas in here that have downtown parking lot. There's the capital facilities part that has the 5,000 balance that we're talking about. But then you also have, we have this business license surcharge downtown parking lot carryover of 3,000. But then we also have this redevelopment agency downtown parking lot carryover. I'd feel more comfortable going with the redevelopment agency carryover to fund this thing rather than the business license surcharge. Because actually, and one thing I forgot to mention during the budget, I'd like to see us maybe start working with the business owners with this business license surcharge and possibly establish some type of promotion program. You know, you always hear on the radio all the time the Modesto Chamber of Commerce is always promoting their downtown businesses and doing things like that. And I think it would be a really good thing to look at to maybe start doing some type of promotion program through the county for the city of Newman. I know we've always talked about doing what we can do to promote this city, but we haven't always put the dollars up, I don't think, all the time. And so I would be reluctant to use that other amount from the business license surcharge. And we, like I said, we do have this additional 2,000 in the redevelopment agency downtown parking lot carryover.
Are those funds both available, Margaret? There's the 5,000 and the 2,000. Okay.
So if council has no concerns about that, if we could reallocate it from the RDA downtown carryover.
What I was thinking was, you know, if we bought that land from Mr. Carter, you know, even if it didn't work out as a parking lot, it would be land that we would have that we could do improvements on in the future. You know, I can't see where it would be a loss to purchase that land. I mean, are you still looking into possibly purchasing that?
Well, can we
instead
do
of-
that, Cleve? I mean, we could certainly do a lease option on that thing, we could talk to them about that, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, my direction that I was asking for right now was just to look at the 3-month lease.
Right.
And
Let's get that fence knocked down and get that thing graded and everything else, just for starters, and then see where we're at.
but I need to negotiate a 3-month lease, right, before I
Right.
do that. And you want to do that on a temporary basis, then a 3-month, and then look at.
it sounds pretty good, but the only thing I'm concerned about is the price going to escalate because of that.
Right. That's what
I
I'm
mean,
thinking.
you're
Maybe we
going to
should.
go in and improve that land, and I don't know. That's why I'm saying it'd be good to know a selling price for the land and
Yeah.
Well, we're going to know basically on this thing, as it says in your report, this 3-month trial basis. So why couldn't we just do some type of lease option on this property, and then after this trial basis is up, we're either going to know if this thing's going to work and we're going to walk away from it, or else we're going to exercise the option and, you know, basically make payments on the thing the way we're doing on that parkland out there in Mariposa.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we could, as Councilmember Altemuller says, you know, we could look at the whole thing. and
If we
Councilmember
did that, would
Martina.
we know, I mean, if we're gonna negotiate it like a, rent to own, so to speak, parking lot, would you, Cleve, right now, would you negotiate a cost of the land if we were to buy it after 3 months, so that we would know? Or,
I can't
Sorry.
get into the negotiations for purchase. In order to do that, I would have to go out and do get an appraisal done and everything on it. Legally, that's what I'm required to do.
okay.
So,
Let's go with your 3 months.
and that will take me, unfortunately, that's probably going to take me a month at
Maybe
least.
3 months to do.
It may take me to 3 months to get that done, depending on the whole process, but, I can do that, yeah, but it's just a longer process if you want me to look at establishing a price.
Well, we might
as
as well
far
look
the
at that.
city
You know, we've got that parking lot done down at the other end, the south end of town. We've got the parking lot in the middle of town, and we don't have a bigger parking lot on this end of town. So we might as well look at it. You know, we might as well just look at this thing. This thing's been a long time in coming. But my only request is that we take it out of the carryover from RDA instead of business license surcharge.
Well, isn't the business license surcharge fund specifically for projects such as this? As a downtown improvement?
It's more designed towards promotional type downtown activities than.
And that's the
I don't
reason.
know if that's
That's the
exactly
reason
it,
when I
but
had seen these three items here. That's why I thought, because that's something I had actually talked to Tina about probably a couple weeks ago or so, was how can we do some type of community promotion for the city, and it just so happened that this thing right here, this $3,000, happened to be for this business license surcharge that we're looking at spending. Plus, we also had this extra carryover from RDA. And I just think that I would really like to see us get the ball rolling on a promotion program. Hire, maybe go out and in conjunction with the streetscape program, hire somebody to look at doing some community promotion for this city, and do what we can. Modesto has their ads all over the place on the radio. You always hear about Modesto Chamber of Commerce. We might as well look at doing it here. But so if there are there any objections to moving that? No.
No,
No?
Okay. Okay.
do it.
So what we'll do then is we'll move the 2,000 from the RDA parking lot carryover, and then Cleve, can you work, if there are no objections to authorizing our city manager to work with the Chamber of Commerce and try to establish a promotion program for the city and work with them and developing something on radio and whatever else, just some type of community promotion program for these funds that we were talking about here in the capital expenditure fund. If there are no objections to that, can we authorize Cleve to do that as well? Okay.
Technically, what would happen is that would probably be looked at what Tina referred to earlier, the $10,000 that
Okay.
Margaret has put in there for
Okay.
the business license surcharge. That is more likely where it would come from rather than
Okay.
this
Sure.
area that you're looking at. Is that correct?
But that would
Margaret?
be technically okay for the business license surcharge, right? That whole thing there? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we could go ahead and get you working on that
Okay.
and bring something back to us when you work with the chamber. Okay. Are there any other questions on the parking lot negotiation here?
So help me out exactly what we're doing here. Are we, I'm not sure what direction I've got.
we're
Are
doing-
we just the temporary 3-month, is that what you're
That's
approving right
exactly
now?
what we're doing.
Okay,
Exactly as you have outlined.
Right.
okay,
And you know where the funds are coming from, right?
right.
Okay.
But be thinking rent to own, rent to own.
Okay, if there are no other questions, can we have some direction on this?
I so move that we approve the review proposal to lease parking lot at 1223 Main Street for public parking and authorize city manager to negotiate the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 9C, this is discussion of countywide sales tax sharing agreement and appointment of member of county committee to represent the city of Newman. Cleve?
Okay, over the past, 3 or 4 months, I guess, city managers have been having several discussions on a countywide sales tax sharing agreement. There's several advantages to that. There's potential disadvantages also, but overall, I think it's a positive thing. When you're talking about this, as we've gone through our discussions, the main thing that's come up, well, let's look at some models that have been done. Well, that's hard to do because this is really a first-time thing. There's maybe one or two models in the country of similar things that have been attempted, but there really isn't an example of something like this that has been done. There are two main advantages to doing something like this. Number one is competition for commercial development with the county is eliminated. In other words, if the county wants to, if the county wanted to put a commercial development somewhere in the county in order to gain sales tax, they would no longer have that advantage. So they would quit. The county would basically get out of the development business because they would have no advantage to putting something in the county, and they would assist the cities basically in putting development in the cities where it should be. The second thing, well, the other part of that is associated with that is rather than having cities compete against each other also for development, the county would all be on the same playing field and all be, if a development happened in Oakdale instead of Newman, that's great. We would be cheering for Oakdale and saying that's great because we would share in that potential sales tax that would come in. So there are advantages in that way to it also. The other thing is that it has the potential to eliminate the peaks and valleys that we might see in our sales tax. For example, if you're to look at our sales tax, as you know, I believe it was 1996 where we took a significant drop in our sales tax due to one business that left. If some sort of tax sharing formula were established, we could hopefully eliminate that. We may go down some if the county on a total went down in sales tax, but you wouldn't see the big jumps and the big losses that have the potential, especially as I see it for a little city, to see if we happen to lose a major sales tax contributor. So we've been talking about this. It was introduced at a meeting of the mayors and city managers about a month ago, I believe, wasn't it, Mayor? Mm-hmm. And the issue was introduced to see if there was interest. At that point, everyone basically said, yeah, let's look at it. There were no commitments, but let's continue to look at it. The city of Modesto and Stanislaus County currently have a tax sharing agreement for the North McHenry Avenue area where there are several car dealerships, and there was some things that were happening there, and therefore they entered into an agreement to share the sales tax for that area. Since that time, the city of Modesto submitted a grant request or grant application to the Great Valley Center to get planning funds to look at this issue and see if it is something that is feasible to do and come up with different scenarios. At this time, what we've agreed to do as city managers and the mayor is to bring this back to our councils, request that they at least see what their feelings are and see if they agree to continue looking at it, and to appoint one member of your council to attend meetings to look at this and bring back reports, et cetera, to the city council on progress. So that's what I'm requesting at this time. It's my recommendation that we continue and at least support the review of this because I do feel it has a real potential if it can be successful to benefit us. And so I would recommend that we continue and request that the council appoint a member to be part of this process.
Are there any questions about the sales tax sharing agreement?
What are the cons?
Well, the cons are, I guess, that potentially some people are looking at this, that the first year they establish this sales tax sharing agreement, there's potential that some people may have less sales tax in that beginning year than they may have had if we hadn't gone to it. If somebody's currently going through good times and their sales taxes, they've got some good revenue-based businesses coming in, then they may be reluctant to go to this. To be honest with you, for the city of Newman, we're kind of at a low right now, and I think we're turning that around, and I think we're going to see it starting to come back up as far as sales tax. But that's one potential. There's a lot of skepticism on some people's part of whether or not we can reach an agreement of who's going to get what share and how we're going to establish that. It's going to be an extremely difficult process. The other fact of this that I think is important to realize is this is actually a very important step and a part of the visioning process that the county has been going through. This fits very well with the visioning statements that we've come up with to actually look at in our land use planning, placing businesses where they should be rather than where they are given the most tax advantages and where what city is willing to give them the most incentives, but eliminate some of those incentives and simply look at the businesses, where is the most logical place for a business to be based on the population growth, based on the traffic impacts and et cetera. So you can take the financial aspects out of it as far as financial advantages to a city or a county, take those out of it and allow the business to go where is the best place for it to be. So in my mind right now, if it is successful, I don't really see that the cons are significant, but I guess the cons are that it can really be a political uphill battle to get something like this accomplished.
Do you envision that the revenue sharing would be based on populations then, city population, so those smaller cities would receive a smaller amount of the entire pot?
Currently, most of the talk that I've heard has been to say, no, we don't want to do it on population. We want to do it on some sort of current base that might be established, and then have some growth factor built in on several different factors that might create a formula. So I know, for instance, the city of Houston is very much against using population because they don't want to grow. They don't intend to grow. They want to stay small as they are, and therefore, they would not increase in any sales tax revenues. So they're definitely not in favor of it. And I don't think that population is exactly the way to go. There's been some talk that, well, everything has been very speculative and preliminary right now, but some people have said, well, maybe we use a portion of population and then some other factors to look at it. So there's a whole realm of different formulas that could be used to look at this, and the key is to try and come up with something that comes out for a win-win for everyone involved. So possible.
Will be quite a challenge.
Yeah. Any other questions on this? How do we want to proceed? Is this something we want to participate in?
At this
I
point,
think
we're
we-
just looking into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very preliminary. Yes.
And the other cities have voiced their support.
Right. Actually, the city of Modesto, I believe, and the county are looking at it tonight, and same time we are. So, did they approve it?
approved
Okay.
it?
Yeah. City of in case for those of you who didn't hear it, the city of Modesto approved it tonight. So, okay. We're needing an appointment for a council member.
I think, Mr. Mayor, would you consider being our representative?
If
You've been involved in the process up to
Mhm.
now.
If the council would like for me to continue on this, I wouldn't object to it.
Have to see you do
Okay.
that. Mhm.
All right, thank you. Item 9D, this is to recommend support for Senate Constitutional Amendment 3 to impose a statewide half-cent transportation sales tax with implementation of the local county-by-county basis. I'll let Charles, the mayor, add to this if he would like to. He also got this report from SAG requesting that this be supported. SAG has their policy board meeting tomorrow night, and they're requesting that the policy board be ready to make a recommendation. We actually only got this, last Wednesday or Thursday, I believe it was, and they're requesting that we lend our support to it. The basic change is that first there would be a statewide vote to consider this, and if that statewide vote is approved, what it would require is Currently, it requires a 2/3 vote to adopt a half-cent sales tax. We could do it currently. It was considered in the county briefly a few years ago. And there are several counties that currently have a half-cent sales tax for transportation. What this would do would change the requirement, which requires a 2/3 vote to a half or to a majority vote. So that's one of the key issues. But the reason I added this at a late date, it was part of your amended agenda, as you saw, because I wasn't comfortable and I didn't know whether the mayor was comfortable speaking for the council. This can be a very controversial item at some times. My personal opinion on it is that we need to consider it because of the great need that we have to improve roads in the county. There is a severe need for that, and you've seen some of the projects that we have in our budget tonight, but I promise you that that's just a tip of the iceberg of what our needs really are for street improvements in the city of Newman and throughout the county, really. So I know that I talked to the mayor, and he has done it, and I agree somewhat with his opinions on it also. So I'll let him work that.
Just a couple of concerns, and this will be at the meeting, the SAG Policy Board meeting tonight, and I'm going to vote the way the majority of the council wishes on this. But a couple of concerns on this, and you all have a copy of this. Yeah. Basically, what this does is, as Cleve said, this will have a statewide half-a-cent transportation sales tax, and SAG Policy Board did consider having a half-a-cent tax for this county. In fact, just this last year. One of the concerns that I did want to bring to your attention, that I will bring up tomorrow night at the meeting, is the fact that currently, under the Bradley Burns sales tax law, transportation is currently funded a 1/4 cent for the sales tax that we pay. This here speaks nowhere about, one of the things I'm concerned about, if this half-a-cent sales tax comes into being, there's nothing in here that speaks to the 1/4% that's currently going right now for funding of it. I'm afraid that's what's going to happen, is we're going to impose this half-a-cent sales tax, and this 1/4 cent sales tax, the state's just going to divert that to somewhere else because it doesn't specifically prohibit it in this. So it just seems to me that they're just going to shift their obligation now and allow us to tax ourselves and shift that someplace else. The other concern that I have is that, as Margaret has pointed out in our budget here, the only fund that is really going up in revenue that we receive is about $268,000 that we receive in vehicle license fees. Now, there have been several proposals before the state legislature to eliminate that. And in addition to that, the state currently has a $4.6 billion surplus that the counties and the cities, there are no proposals out there that will reimburse the cities or counties back funds that were shifted from the property tax in, I believe, 93 or 94. So basically what we have is, those are my concerns. We've also, in addition to that, we have an infrastructure bank at the state that is funded for, I forget how many millions of dollars, 800 million, I believe it is, and there hasn't been any projects authorized to it. So those are my concerns in a nutshell. You've got the state that has all these funds, and they continually take our funds away from us, and they continually want us to impose more taxes on ourselves without any relief being provided, that should be provided. But like I said, the big concern that I have is that there is nothing in here that speaks to that 1/4 cent that we are currently funded on our state sales tax, and I'm afraid that that's just going to be transferred to something else, and we're going to get stuck holding the bag once again. But I talked to Cleve about it today. I wanted to bring my concerns to you just because I think we're all getting a little bit frustrated with getting our money taken away and not getting any of it back, and continually being asked to tax ourselves even more without any relief in sight. With that, if the council has any more comments or questions or concerns on this, Senate constitutional amendment that's possibly being proposed and that we'll speak to tomorrow night. If you have something that you want me to bring to the SAG Policy Board tomorrow as far as questions or concerns, I would be more than happy to do that.
Some time ago, I recall going to a meeting where they discussed the possibility of raising additional transportation funds. And, I mean, none of us can doubt that the state's in dire need of transportation improvements. But one thing that bothered me was there was a prioritized list. No matter how much we raise, we're never going to have enough money to do all the things we need to do. And it was a prioritized list of those projects that would be funded. And I saw very few that would be funded on the west side. And that bothered me. You know, we would be asking our people to pay more, but would they get additional help in improvements on the west side? And that was my concern. Most of the projects are on the 99 corridor.
And the other thing is, how much more do we actually get if this other quarter cent goes away? I mean, we're basically, in effect, getting a quarter cent,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
I just,
Well, get a clarification. That's your job.
okay.
Well, one of the things I was recommended to Charles is on that issue that he might recommend that as part of it that we include in there a maintenance of Everett clause that quarter cent from the Bradley Burns Sales Tax Act has to continue and not be taken away if a half-cent sales tax is approved. So that would be one avenue to include as part of your recommendation if you wanted to go ahead with it.
What does the council say?
Mm.
What's the council's wish on this? Are they recommending that we support this?
I'm not.
No,
No.
not without more information.
So do you want to add something?
Well, I was going to say, it looks like a majority are not going to support it. You're going to say that the SAG recommendation is an amendment to the bill. So if it's moved, do you want to consider Mr. Dixon's recommendation, which is to add that it's approved by a majority of the cities representing a majority of the incorporated population as well as the Board of Supervisors. Whereas right now it just says the county approve it. His recommendation is that we add the majority of the cities too.
Okay.
But it looks like we're not going to get there.
You know, one of the things as far as more specifics, if this amendment is approved, the whole thing would have to come back to the county as far as what I'm thinking that you probably saw, Councilman Radford, was the proposed sales tax, half-cent sales tax that was looked at about a year and a half ago.
For this county.
And it did
This
not,
was,
yeah, and it did not include, you're right, that's one of the reasons it did not go forward any further is because people were not happy with the way that the funds were being distributed.
I just think, we're asking our citizens to be imposed another half a cent on which is, the sales tax is near 8 cents now. And I just can't see imposing this when, one, these projects, there aren't very many of them for out here. And two, we're continually getting our money taken away from the state and we're not getting anything in return from them. And they've got this humongous surplus and we're not seeing a dime of it. I mean, I just can't see asking our citizens to pay a half a cent more. But it sounds to me like the majority of the council here is not in favor of this, and I will bring the concerns tomorrow night to the SAG Policy Board of what the council's wishes were, and see if we could possibly, if a majority, if the SAG Policy Board does move forward with this, at least if we could possibly get language in there supporting the fact that the quarter cent for the Bradley Burns Sales Tax Act continues to go for transportation and isn't diverted someplace else. So that's what I'll bring tomorrow night to the SAG Policy Board. So the recommendation is not approved. Do we need a vote for?
I would probably take a vote on it just so that you know that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Can we have a motion to
What's the word?
to not support this Senate Constitutional Amendment 3 and forward this to SAG?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0 to not recommend passage. Thank you. Item number 9C, this is approval of warrant 16957 to PG&E. Are there any questions?
It should be 9E.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9E, sorry about that. 9E, approval warrant to PG&E 16957. If there are no questions, can we have some direction on this?
I make a motion we approve warrant 16957 to PG&E.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Actually, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 4-0 with one non-participating. Item number 10, this is to adjourn to meet as Newman Redevelopment Agency. May we have a roll call, please?
Present.
Present?
Present.
Present.
Present. Item 10B, this approved resolution number 99, next number, a resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the City of Newman Redevelopment Agency fiscal 99-2000.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
the same
Covered,
item. We
yeah.
already discussed that. We just need approval of the resolution with the one amendment of the $4,000 recommended by Councilmember Reed.
Okay. If we could, if there are no questions on this, can we have a motion on this item with the added amendments? Okay.
So-
Can we have some direction on this budget of the redevelopment agency then, please?
Just adopt the resolution. We'll
Yeah.
adjust it later. Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion we approve resolution number 99, next number, resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the City of Newman Redevelopment Agency fiscal year 1999-2000.
As amended.
As amended, excuse me.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. This time, we'll adjourn to regular session. Item number 11, items from the city manager.
Just quickly, I wanted to pass these out. I don't really need to discuss it unless anyone has questions. These are a couple of letters that I received from the Regional Water Quality Control Board relating to the Tataric manufacturing plant. So these are just for your information, unless anyone have any questions they need answered. So it appears that it will be on their agenda on July 30th for review. So if you want to mark your calendars, if anyone's interested in attending.
Cleve, I'm sorry. Can you inform the newspaper tomorrow that we will be on the agenda for July 30th? That way we can inform the residents.
I'll probably wait a little bit longer because it's not for sure. The staff has recommended, they're proposing that the board consider that their July 30th meeting, but as I understand it, it's not for certain. But as soon as I know for sure, it will
Yeah,
be
just
on
so
their
we could
agenda.
keep the residents informed on this.
Sure, sure. In case anyone wondered, the pond number 2 is not cleaned out yet. They are still working on it. I will state that they have made progress, but actually it's been, about a week since we were out there now, Ernie? Did you?
I was out there this afternoon.
Okay, and
too,
it
yeah.
is still not cleaned up,
No.
right? Yeah. So they do still have some work to do out there.
What time are their meetings on this, the Regional Water Quality Control?
They begin at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's usually an all-day meeting from what I've seen.
Wow.
It depends. If this goes in as with recommendations from the board as uncontested items, it could go very quickly. It would be first thing on the agenda.
Okay.
But if there is testimony and people that want to speak to it, then it becomes one of the contested items, and it could, who knows when we would be on, so it could turn into an all-day affair. So.
Any other questions or any other comments, Cleve?
One more thing that I wanted to pass out to council, and it relates very well to what we've just been discussing as far as the state budget surplus and what they have. I received this fax today that I wanted to pass out to you. There is some possible, what's the right term, headway or progress towards getting some local government relief at the state budget level. There are several things that are being discussed currently. This is just a brief memo and what I'm asking you to do, and if there are any concerned citizens out there that really are concerned about sidewalks needing improvement, streets needing improvement, parks that aren't as high a quality as you might like, All of those kind of things are because of the monies that have been taken from cities over the last about 3 or 4 or 5 years. The state over the last 3 years now has actually had a budget surplus. This year they're looking at anywhere from 4.3 to 4.6 billion dollar surplus. The governor's proposal that came out back in May did not show significant relief for cities. There was very little, if any, in there. However, the committees that are made up of the legislature do now show some relief, and there's quite a bit of work going on to try and do some of that in various levels. As you see, some of the comments in here, some of the senators have said, now's the time to do it. If it doesn't get done this year, who knows if it will ever happen. Because there's definitely the money there that the state can do it if they want to. So what the league is requesting, and believe me, the league is really going all out. I've probably received about a fax a day from them now on this subject, and I actually also received a phone call from them today. So I'm assuming that they were calling all cities, requesting that we call our legislators and encourage them and get a commitment from them to look at a local government relief package as far as revenues are concerned this year. I personally will do that, and I wanted to encourage each of you to do that also, unless you have feelings that you don't want me to, or you don't want to ask for those. But I think it is time that the state did return some of those monies to the cities for relief, cities and counties. So this is just for your review, unless anyone had any comments on it or any other direction that you wanted to talk to me about.
I suppose in addition we could fax or email our legislators.
Yes, yes.
You're supposed to send or either email or speak this message right here.
The basic message, yeah. You can see about halfway down there it says secure a commitment to vote no. So basically say to them, don't vote on any budget that does not include some sort of relief for local government. So, the key that I like, that I think is also important is that the package must include ongoing discretionary revenue. There's been a lot of talk up at the state saying that, well, we've already given cities back money. But every bit of the money that they've given us back has been attached to something. We don't have any money. And all the money that they took from us was basically property tax revenues and things like that was all discretionary, bank and lieu funds and things like that was up to the cities to decide what improvements or what services we want to provide. What they've given back to us has all had strings attached to say you have to use it only for this function. So it really ties our hands, because it says we have to have the same type of programs basically that the city of Los Angeles does. You will do the same things they do. And as we all know, we have greatly different needs than what others, like a large city such as Los Angeles do. So that's the key to this. If any of you need phone numbers, fax numbers, etc. from them, give me a call in my office and I'll get those for you, for the legislators, if you need more information of our specific senators and assembly members.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that it, Cleve? That's all. Okay. Councilmember Martina?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention, as a council member, I attend the board of directors meeting at the theater, and the meetings are very exciting. I've never seen people that are so enthusiastic about what they're doing, and it's just a pleasure to be there and see all the different things that they're trying to get the people excited in the theater, and to bring them in to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to use that theater and see how important it is to our community. But it's a very exciting group to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Councilmember Altamiller?
I don't have anything now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Radford?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councilmember Reed?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Cleve, you have one more item I wanted to mention quickly. I forgot about. Just the theater reminded me of it. On July 12th, the city of Newman will be hosting the bi-monthly city-county luncheon here in Newman. We're actually going to hold that at the theater and have a luncheon brought in there. You are all invited to that, and if you can make it, we would love to have you for that date. It'll be at noon, right at 12 o'clock on July 12th. We have tentatively scheduled a speaker who is the county, she's the president of the Arts Council, is that what it's called, Judy? Who is going to come and speak at that meeting. So it should be really good to promote the arts, and I think we're doing a great thing with our theater, and so that'll be a good opportunity for us. So if anyone can make it to that meeting, we'll be putting out more information on that, but it will be a luncheon when city and county members will be here for that. So, yeah. Okay. And I have nothing at this time either. So that's it for item 12, items from the council. Item 13, this is a closed session. We're going to conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9. And at this time, I'll ask for about a 2-minute break before we go into closed session.